Hello there, it's Ned Milburn, guitar builder and repairman in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. Today's video, I want to show you a little bit about doing some fretwork. I've just installed these new frets in a Yamaha acoustic guitar. In a previous video I mentioned that when I pulled the frets out, I filed down the fingerboard more at the nut area, so about 0.4 millimeters I took off it, so I tapered it, okay? I tapered it down to help correct the neck angle. Yamaha guitars have heels that tend to be epoxied into position, so you can't do a normal neck reset. And anyway, a normal neck reset is quite an invasive process. You're correcting well, you're not correcting, you're changing the neck to body joint angle because of body deformation that causes the neck to rise, and the angles, the geometry of the playing surface compared to the bridge gets thrown off. So this fingerboard is a bound fingerboard. The original frets are these fellows, and I'm going to twist that a little bit. You can see that at the end of the fret it's got a little notch, the tang, which is kind of the mushroom stem portion. The tang is taken off, and what I had to do before I installed these frets, every single one of them with a file, I had to take each fret tang and file it off like this. These are the originals, so I didn't do these ones. Let's see if you can see that. Yeah, there you go. And I did all these, so they have to go in. When you install the frets, you install them slightly wider than necessary. What that means is that you have fret ends that are poking out that need to be filed. I'm going to move the camera a little bit here to try and show you. Here's the one side is done, the side that is closest to me at the bottom of the camera screen, and the other side, the bass side of the guitar, is not yet done. So I'm going to show a little bit how to do this. It's a lot of effort. It's a file against metal, and you got to be careful at the same time, and especially up at the fingerboard extension, you have very minimal capability of holding the file strongly in position. So it takes a bit more effort and care in those spots. This file, hopefully you'll be able to see it on camera there. This file is actually slightly banana shaped. Let's see if you can see it. I don't know if it comes out too well, but the file is rounded this way, so kind of like that. So what I use is I use that side against the frets. Gives me lots of control, and the ends of the file don't start catching on the frets and hanging and bonking. So here we go. I'm just going to start this a little bit to show you what it's like. I need to be very careful up here near the headstock that I don't damage the finish. That's why I have it taped off with several layers of tape. Sometimes I will use bits of the string package and I will tape that onto there. But this has about 7 layers of tape on it right now, and that will do the trick. And here we go. I start slowly, because when the fret ends are still pointy, they grab a lot more. And you don't want to force it out of the fret spots. So I'm just going to and I'm holding the file at approximately, let's call it a 50-degree angle. So it's a bit more vertical than the 45-degree angle, maybe 55-degree angle. And the flatter you hold this, the more you're taking the playing surface of the fret and moving it away from the edge of the fingerboard. So I do not like to do a bevel that is a very, I'll call it a flat bevel. I like to do a tall bevel to preserve as much of the playing surface as is possible. So here we go. With the feel it moving better now. Here's another portion that's difficult. This is the transition portion where I'm moving from the neck to the body area. So I like to do these kind of different sections. So I might just work on this a little bit. The closer you cut your frets, the less filing you have to at the end. But if you cut them too close, then you'll have a fret that is actually not protruding enough, and it's going to create an inconsistency. And we don't want that. So especially up here near the headstock of the guitar, I'm going to move the camera a little bit more just to make sure that you can see when I'm working at the headstock area. I can take the file and instead of being perfectly in line with the edge of the frets, I take the file and I twist it this way a little tiny bit. I'm exaggerating to show you, but I'll move it like this, and that way I'm not going to hit the handle of the file onto there. Sometimes I can put my hand there too, but this is fine, I can feel it. Okay, and there that first fret is coming in pretty good. So with the other frets, be careful I don't slide my neck cradle off the edge of the bench. Don't want that. Okay, now it's getting really close on the first few frets. Second and third need to be touched up a bit more. There we go. Going to do a little tiny touch more for these guys. I usually don't like to take a section of frets to its perfect final finish until I get them all close, and then I finish them all fairly well. I finish them all together. So here there's still some long frets. Now what I got to do is I'm going to put my fingers there, my fingernails, kind of the back of my fingernails on the tape and the barrier that I have there. And unfortunately the last fret I left longer than I needed to, so it will take some extra filing. I could have taken a bit more care to trim it a bit shorter, then I'd have less work to do now. But that's okay, I need my exercise. This is very vigorous. You want to be very careful not to slip with your file. If you slip and your fingers pull into the ends of the frets, those frets are really sharp now, and they bite, and they will cut. So you want to be careful about that. I watched Gremlins last night for the second time. Gremlins was a fun movie from the 80s. And the Gremlins gave some people some scratches. That's why I thought of Gremlins, because this, if I scratch my hands up doing this, I'm going to have some gremlin claw marks on my hands, and I don't want that. I want to preserve my nice hands. Okay, still a lot of meat left on those frets. And here near the 13th and 14th and 15th frets, there's a lot now. And that's at the transition stage. Or neck to body, the fingerboard extension. coming along, a little bit more patience, a little bit more determination. Now maybe I can go one by one. Okay, that's starting to feel really nice in here. I still got to work up in this area. A little bit more. So I'm going to leave this for now. I'll come back, I'll get another video on the go after I finish this up. Just a bit more effort here. Or I can just do it now, may as well. Every now and then I like to vacuum up the filings. Clean it up a bit. And you can go. There we go. Whoopsie, I fixed the camera. And you can tell when you're getting to the finish line when you start to see either a little touch of white powder or black or brown, depending upon the color of your fingerboard. If it's rosewood, it'll be brownish purpley. And if it's ebony, as this fingerboard is, it'll be black dust coming from the fingerboard. But the finish, if it's got a fairly thick finish, and especially poly finishes, they'll come off as a very faint white powder. So there we go. I've got that just finally touching the edge of the fingerboard. Now I want to make a nice consistent bevel so that my bevel doesn't change along the length of the fingerboard. There I slipped a little bit. You've got to be careful, as I say. That transition point is a tough point. I'm doing a video.
Okay. I have to use it properly.
I'm doing a video. Sorry about that. I have interruptions. Now, I will move the camera angle to show you. You'll be able to see exactly. I can feel now it's going more smoothly because I'm just on the edge of the fingerboard. And again, let's remember this is a bound fingerboard. Bound fingerboards are the best. They're best, however, when they're bound with wood and not plastic. but the types of glue required, it's really important. I use waterproof glue. Let me see if I can reach my waterproof glue. It must be on one of my other benches, not close at hand. So I use Titebond 3 to glue fingerboard binding on because it is the most waterproof glue that they produce. You have wood to wood on the fingerboard, and you have your finger humidity, sweat, whatever. Guitar players, so you might have drool or beer or something like that going on the fingerboard. So you want to have a fingerboard that's going to resist moisture. The thing I don't like about plastic fingerboard binding is I have never seen plastic bonded to wood that lasts for decades as much as I've seen wood to wood being glued once and lasting for decades. Plastic to wood, especially in the commercial setting, I haven't seen satisfactory joints, and quite often the binding will start peeling up here at the ends of the fingerboards, up here near the nut. Okay? Now before I vacuum this, I'm going to show you what it looks like. You can see the white powder coming off, and you can see where it just nicked the edge of the fingerboard. Now what that's going to do is it's going to produce an effect such that I can rub my finger right across the edge there. I don't feel any fret bumps at all. It's very nice for the playing experience. It's the most ideal type of guitar fingerboard to build. It is extra effort, extra money, and to have a wooden bound fingerboard, it's rare in a factory guitar setting to have that. That's why we usually only see it on handmade guitars. But it's the best. Costs too much money, that's why factory guitars don't do it. Factory guitars are most often built for efficiency of time and money, and time and expense. Well, time is an expense because it's people working on the instrument, but also costs for the materials. So let's see, this one is actually nicely, it's a wood binding on wood. So this is one of the rarer factory guitars that has a wood binding, and hopefully if Yamaha did a good job, Yamaha is usually very good with their build quality, and hopefully if Yamaha did a good job choosing their wood glue and using the glue properly, then the guitar owner will never have a problem with this binding coming off. But the other good thing is, if wood binding on a fingerboard does start to come off, it can be glued back effectively, easily, very low cost, so it's not a big deal. One more thing I'm going to show you about the frets, since we're talking about this operation. I'm going to draw a picture. Here's the thickness of the fingerboard. Here's the fret originally. The fret stuck out kind of like this, and the fret tang goes underneath like that because you have the binding there. So there's the fret on top of the fingerboard. There's the thickness of the binding, and there's the fret tang. So when we file it, I have my file and I'm filing it like this. Okay. Filing like that. And what we end up getting is we take off the edge of the fret like that so that we have the fret beveled, but we just kiss the edge of that binding as well. So if I draw the edge of that fingerboard in an expanded viewpoint, here's what we kind of have. This, of course, I had to pick a pencil with a terrible tip on it. Very blunt. There we go, now I've drawn it even bigger. I've exaggerated this portion a little bit, but you can see what we have. We have the fret comes to here, then the actual fingerboard width has another 0.2 of a millimeter, 1/5 of a millimeter or so, maybe even 0.15 of a millimeter, very, very little. But the reason we do that is fingerboards, quite often, they continue to shrink after the guitar is built. So if this portion continues to shrink, it moves in relationship to the fret. Even if that moves in a little bit and the fret starts to hang out there a little tiny bit, then that little bit of the fret that's hanging out past the edge of the bevel there, if you rub your fingers along the edge of the fingerboard, you're still not going to cut yourself with that little tiny bit, and that tiny bit can easily be filed off anytime later. So that's why we do it like this. If I had only, I'll draw it one more time. If I had only beveled it to meet, okay, so here's my fret bevel, and it meets exactly at the end. Okay. As this fingerboard shrinks outwards, then this knife edge of the fret will be out past the edge of the fingerboard, and that's when it's not very fun, and if you aren't careful you can actually cut your arm skin or your finger skin or your hand or cut your clothing or whatnot. So there's reasons for these little tiny what would you say, tiny details. There you go. Hopefully that is useful for anyone who wants to do some fret dressing and fret replacement work on their own. And if you're not going to do it on your own but get someone else to do it, the more you know, the more you can talk to the person who's doing it, and if they don't seem like they know what they're talking about, find someone else. Okay, if this was useful, put a thumbs up, make a comment, tell me what else you'd like to see, and subscribe. That helps out. Helps me find out if people actually find this worthwhile, because I mean, if people don't find it worthwhile, I probably won't keep posting stuff like this, but I want to try and share my knowledge before my time on this earth is done, and this is a way that I can do that. So thumbs up, comment, tell me what else you want to see. I'd appreciate that. Thank you. Bye.